Two English Premier League football clubs, Tottenham Hotspur and West Ham United, are lining up for their biggest battle of the season. But this is not a battle for Premier League points. It is a fight to see which will move into the Olympic Stadium in Stratford after 2012. The government's Olympic Park Legacy Company will by the end of this month tell ministers and the Mayor of London which club they prefer. The Spurs plan is radical. Working with the US sports and entertainment operator AEG, which operates the O2 Centre, Spurs say they would effectively knock down the stadium with private funds and start again. But that approach horrifies some people, given that the stadium cost £500 million to build. Tottenham, however, say that this outcome is the only feasible option for the stadium.
The Spurs plan really is to take out much of what was going to be taken out anyway, to go to the 25,000 seat environment, to build up from those foundations a bespoke, proper football stadium, but at the same time, working with AEG, create other forms of sport and venues and leisure and entertainment, so it's a vibrant part of the Olympic Park.
West Ham claims the scale of its conversion work would be considerably smaller, but it must rely on its partner, Newham Council, and the proceeds of the sale of its current ground in East London for funding its proposals. The battle has split communities and led to accusations of broken promises. For some Tottenham fans, abandoning this White Hart Lane ground, leaving this area and relocating to East London would be an act that betrays the traditions of this 128-year-old club.
We go to the Olympic Stadium, I know for a fact there'll be thousands of fans against it, and I'm hoping it's just a coy to get the new stadium here up and running.
I support them on TV, but I won't go to Stratford.
The added factor is that Tottenham has for some years been working on a plan to redevelop its existing stadium in the deprived North London borough of Haringey. The prospect of the club quitting the place that bears its name is one that David Lammy, MP for Tottenham, says would be a catastrophe for the community.
Well, it would be a complete disaster for the local area if Spurs left, and that's because we're standing here in the area of London with the highest unemployment. This is the biggest private employer and they would be off, but the economic effects on this area would be significant. For the shops on the match day, for local businesses and industry, this would be a disaster not just for Tottenham but also for Enfield and the Upper Lee Valley.
West Ham, in contrast, are in no doubt that because of the stadium's East London location, they are its natural tenants.
Many of the revenue flows generated from this are not generated from football, they're generated from the rest of the package. The business case is based on the current fan base and the current support base. Our business case is not based on filling the stadium every day at every match. We have based it on the current fan base and the current attendance. If it was, as has been suggested, based on pushing up the fan base and the attendance up to £60,000, then obviously that would be a much higher risk.
West Ham are backed by the sport of athletics because, unlike Spurs, West Ham is willing to include in its stadium plan an athletics track. Spurs argued that the distance from some seats to the centre of the pitch would kill the crowd atmosphere and reduce attendances. To fulfil the promise of an Olympic athletics legacy, Spurs is willing to make funds available to redevelop the dilapidated athletics stadium at Crystal Palace.
Even if you could argue that because West Ham are keeping the stadium more intact, there's a less short-term risk. The fact is, long-term or even medium-term, there are serious questions about the financial viability of that stadium, particularly with a club that doesn't have a waiting list, that finds it difficult to fill its current stadium. And we know that athletics has no use for a 60,000-seat venue because it can't fill it.
When the Legacy Company and ministers sit down to weigh up the two clubs' bids, it is probable that Tottenham and AEG, with deeper pockets and a track record in sports and entertainment, will offer a better prospect for commercial success than West Ham and Newham Council. The question is whether the income streams that would come into the Treasury if Spurs are chosen as anchor tenants are sufficiently big enough to offset the factors that might pull ministers towards the West Ham bid, such as a better athletics legacy, a club whose fan base is closer to the Olympic Stadium, and an Olympic Stadium restoration plan that is not as extensive as the one Spurs envisages. Whichever club loses will cry foul and say they was robbed, while the winning club will open the champagne. The referee, in this case the Olympic Park Legacy Company, will be roundly criticised whatever decision it makes by fans and pundits alike. After that, West Ham and Spurs will get back to the business of playing football. Roger Blitz for the Financial Times at the Olympic Stadium in Stratford.